Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. India has become the world's second country after the US to have more than 20 million COVID-19 cases. The country recorded over 357,000 new cases and more than 3,400 deaths overnight. In Pakistan, 161 people have lost their lives to the virus and more than 3,300 tested positive in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.2 million lives while infecting over 153 million people. The US has downplayed the impact of Taliban attacks in Afghanistan as foreign forces begin to pull out. Speaking to reporters, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said small harassing attacks over the weekend had no significant impact on the withdrawal. Kirby's statement comes after Secretary of State Antony Blinken warned of decisive action if retreating troops are attacked. In Myanmar, 5 people, including an ousted lawmaker and 3 police detectors, have been killed in triple blast in the Bago region. The blasts were triggered after the parcel bomb exploded at a house. An advocacy group says security forces have killed at least 766 civilians since the February 1st coup. At least 15 people have died after an overpass carrying metro train cars partially collapsed in Mexico City. Officials said 70 people were also injured after the bridge fell onto cars on a road below. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. India has become the world's second country after the US to have more than 20 million COVID-19 cases. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.2 million lives while infecting over 153 million people. India recorded over 357,000 new cases and more than 3,400 deaths overnight. Country's opposition leader, Rahul Gandhi, has called for a nationwide lockdown. Over in Latin America, in a sigh of relief, Brazil's daily death toll fell below 1,000. The country is now close to signing a second contract with Pfizer-BioNTech for another 100 million doses of its vaccine. Meanwhile, Mexico hopes to finish vaccinating its entire population against COVID-19 by April 2022. In the US, the 7-day rolling average of new cases has fallen below 50,000 for the first time since October. Air travel in the US hit its highest mark in more than 13 months, as nearly 1.67 million people were screened at the country's airport checkpoints on Sunday. Meanwhile, Florida lifted all restrictions, citing the effectiveness and availability of vaccines. Canada has recommended the use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine for people aged 30 years and over, despite blood clotting fears. Pakistan has recorded another 161 deaths from COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the nationwide death toll has risen to 18,310. The ministry said over 3,300 people contracted the virus overnight. It said the positivity ratio has declined to 8.98%. The caseload has topped 837,000, out of which over 733,000 have recovered. There are more than 86,000 active cases in the country. According to government data, more than 2.7 million people have been vaccinated in the country. The US has downplayed the impact of Taliban attacks in Afghanistan as foreign forces begin to pull out. Pentagon spokesperson says small harassing attacks over the weekend had no significant impact on the withdrawal. Speaking to reporters, John Kirby said US Commander General in Afghanistan has response options for the protection of troops. He said the relationship with Afghan security forces is going to change after withdrawal. Kirby said Washington is still working
on the details of the future ties. But he added it will be largely of a financial nature and the U.S. is not going to have any troops on the ground. Kirby's statement comes after Secretary of State Antony Blinken warned of decisive action if retreating troops are attacked. Meanwhile, the Taliban say they have discussed the Afghan peace process with the Norwegian envoy in Doha. Chinese envoy Non-Rong called on Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa in Rawalpindi. They discussed recent developments in the Afghan peace process. In a statement, the military's media wing said they also spoke about the China-Pakistan economic corridor. General Bajwa said Pakistan attaches great importance to friendly relations with Beijing. He also hailed China for its contribution to the fight against COVID-19 in Pakistan. The Chinese envoy acknowledged Pakistan's efforts for peace in Afghanistan and the region. The U.S. says North Korea needs to decide if it wants to engage diplomatically for the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. This comes a day after Pyongyang warned the U.S. of retaliation to what it called Washington's hostile policy.
At a press conference in London, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Washington will see what North Korea actually does in the coming days. Speaking about Russia, Blinken said the U.S. wants a more stable relationship with Moscow. But he reiterated Washington's desire depends on how aggressively the Kremlin decides to act. The diplomat also pointed out that the U.S. does not aim to contain or hold China down. However, he added the West will defend the international rules-based order from what he called subversive attempts by any country. Meanwhile, China's envoy to the UN, Yang Jun, said Beijing hopes the U.S. will emphasize more on dialogue rather than pressure.
The Russian military has occupied 2 new sites south of Armenia near the Azeri border. Russian news agencies reported this, citing Armenia's acting Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. Pashinyan said this is an additional security guarantee not only for the Sionic region but also for Armenia. The move gives Moscow a bigger footprint in a region where it sent extra troops last year to maintain peace. Moscow already has a military base in the northwest of Armenia. It has sent 2,000 troops as peacekeepers to Nagorno-Karabakh, an enclave of Azerbaijan populated by ethnic Armenians. Israeli settlers have attacked a Palestinian village in the occupied West Bank overnight. Palestinian officials said the settlers lit up brush fires and hurled stones. They added that the attack appeared to be an act of revenge after 3 Israelis were wounded in a shooting at a nearby traffic junction. An Israeli rights group says security forces arrested 11 Palestinians and wounded 4 others with rubber-coated bullets. Last month, the UN warned that assaults by Israeli settlers against Palestinians in the West Bank have increased substantially. Egypt has signed a deal with France to buy 30 Rafale fighter jets. This comes after the Dassault finalized a €2.5 billion agreement in January for the sale of 18 Rafales to Greece. In a statement, the Ministry of Defense said the deal will be financed through a loan to be repaid over at least 10 years, but it did not disclose the value of the deal or further details. French authorities were not immediately available for comment. The Human Rights Watch says France is encouraging ruthless repression in Egypt by signing the contract. In Myanmar, 5 people, including an ousted lawmaker and 3 police detectives, have been killed in triple blast in the Bagu region. The blasts were triggered after a parcel bomb exploded at a house. Another police officer involved in the civil disobedience movement was wounded. Meanwhile, anti-regime protesters have once again taken to the streets in Mandalay and Yangon. An advocacy group says security forces have killed at least 766 civilians since the February 1st coup. Norway's telecom giant Telenor has fully impaired its Myanmar operation over the deteriorating security situation. The company's value in Myanmar comes up to $783 million. At least 15 people have died after an overpass carrying metro train cars partially collapsed in Mexico City. Officials say 70 people were also injured after the bridge fell onto cars on a road below. Rescue teams are combing through the wreckage in search of possible survivors. Mexico City Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum termed the incident a terrible tragedy. She expressed solidarity with the victims and their families. Sheinbaum called for an investigation into the accident to identify the causes and define responsibilities. In Pakistan, 15 people have died and 35 others are injured after a passenger bus overturned in Punjab's Attock district. Rescue officials say the accident took place because of overspeeding. They added that most of the injured were in critical condition and shifted to a nearby hospital. The bus was going to Peshawar from Lahore. In Colombia, protesters have called for a new mass rally despite the withdrawal of a tax reform bill. At least 19 people have been killed and more than 800 were wounded in several days of clashes. Authorities have detained 431 people and the government deployed the military in the worst affected cities. Meanwhile, truck drivers blocked avenues in Bogota, Zipaquirá, Bucaramanga and Barranquilla. They want the Duque administration to provide benefits for the sector, such as preferential gasoline prices. Earlier Finance Minister Alberto Carrasquilla resigned after the public backlash over tax reforms. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The European Commission has proposed plans to ease restrictions on foreign tourists. Under the plan, people vaccinated with an EU-approved jab at least 2 weeks before will be permitted to travel. In a tweet, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said it is time to revive Europe's tourism industry. But member states will be allowed to limit travel if the health situation deteriorates. Currently, the EU only allows non-essential travel from 7 countries. Bill and Melinda Gates have parted ways and filed for divorce after 27 years of marriage. The couple announced their Twitter profiles separately. They said they will continue to work together for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The two said they do not believe they can grow together any longer as a couple. A joint petition for the dissolution of marriage was filed in King County Superior Court in Seattle. It stated that the marriage is irretrievably broken. The petition, which says the couple have no minor children, comes after the youngest of their 3 offspring recently turned 18. In Colombia, bees are enjoying their new digs in Barbosa, where tiny hotels provide rest after a busy day pollinating. The hexagonal structures are filled with a variety of bamboo canes and allow bees of all shapes and sizes. More in this report.
Colombia is the world's second most biodiverse country and boasts nearly 550 varieties of bees. As elsewhere in the world, the bees in the South American country are threatened by human activity. To protect the bees, the local metropolitan authority has made bamboo homes.
It's like a hotel because they're going to have a quiet moment in their room, which is one of these bamboo straws, before setting off again. They can either return to the same hole or find another and so on, and we keep on changing it. We'll clean it. If this were a regular hotel, I'd be one of the people cleaning the rooms.
The homes are built from wood and acrylic roofs to protect the bees from rain. They aim to protect species found in 10 municipalities of the metropolitan area of the Abura Valley.
Actually, these hotels for bees are small spaces that require a minimum infrastructure that can be made with recyclable material. A space that seeks to generate an environment in which they can coexist, have healthy protection. We must recognize that globally bees are being negatively impacted and they are losing more spaces every day.
The use of pesticides and fertilizers is harmful to bees, so the tiny structures offer them natural spaces for survival.
With the New York City reopening in July, about 100 citizens took a Zumba class in Central Park to dance out the prolonged stress. This report has more.
New Yorkers set their eyes on dealing with the remainder of the pandemic and preparing for the post-coronavirus life. A week after the pandemic had arrived, the Zumba instructor Sol Alberion started teaching classes online from her living room, but she quickly realized she missed seeing her students in person. As soon as groups workout became an option, she took her roller speaker and organized the first session in Central Park.
I have the most touching stories that you can imagine. I have people fighting cancer. I have people that are unemployed, people that lost everything in the pandemic and even before the pandemic. So when they leave the class, it's like I just feel good with myself. I have the moments that I was able to just be happy, find joy.
The class became popular very quickly. One of the participants, Nam, who had taken the Zumba class for 8 years before the pandemic, he says the phrase like, "This class, it keeps me sane," is an understatement.
I think there was a lot of isolation that happened for me personally, for my friends, for even my roommates who couldn't see other people except the three of us, right? So it was incredibly isolating, and coming here, seeing people, interacting with people from 6 feet away, wearing masks, you know what? It felt more normalizing.
About 100 participants show up on weekend mornings and dozens on weekday nights. 25 people worked out with Alberion on a day when it was 15 degrees outside and snowing.
Stocks in the Asia Pacific are trading higher, following a wave of positive sentiment at the Wall Street overnight. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index is leading the gains, rising a fraction over 0.5%. Seoul's Kospi and the ASX 200 in Australia have also added nearly 0.5% each. Major markets in China and Japan are closed for holidays. US tech giant Verizon says it is selling its media unit including Yahoo and AOL to Apollo Global Management for $5 billion. According to the deal, Verizon will get $4.25 billion and will keep a 10% stake in the company. The deal is expected to be closed later this year. Verizon Communications bought AOL for $4.4 billion in 2015 and Yahoo in 2017 for $4.5 billion. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.